there's a lot of things that go into the perfect Christmas. But one of the linchpins for the perfect Christmas is the tree. And I grew up in a house where we had an artificial tree, which is fantastic, especially with pre-lit trees. You open the box, you stand it up, and boom, instant Christmas. But when I married my wife, Danielle, I didn't realize I was marrying into a family of live trees. So it was something I had never experienced before. And the first year that we were in our house together, we went out to cut down a tree. This was before Trees of Hope was a thing, and so we went out and we cut down a tree. And cutting down a tree is a lot like hunting. You go out, you kill it, you strap it to your car, and then you decorate your house with it. And so we went out and we looked for a tree, and for Danielle, she likes a tree that is about as wide as it is tall, so basically a square. And so we were looking for a tree, and we finally found a tree, and it took forever for me to cut down that tree. Like quite literally about 45 minutes to cut down the tree between the dullness of the blade and the width of the trunk on the tree. And if we can get my picture up here, I can show you how ridiculous this tree was. So we went to Mr. Tree, and I'm cutting down the tree, and it's taking forever, and it finally comes down. And being a rookie at live tree Christmas, I didn't have any rope to put the tree on my car. So we have our car out on the lot, and I have this ridiculously ginormous tree, and no way to get it out of the tree lot. So the only thing we can come up with is we're going to put it in the back of our SUV. So we put the seats down, and I'm like pulling on the trunk, and Danielle's like pushing on it, and we're trying to fit that thing in the back of a car. And it just was not going. So it took us probably as long as it took to cut down the tree to actually get it in our car. And so we pull out to the front, and you pay by the foot. And the way that they measure these trees is they have like a pre-marked stick that they hold up next to the tree. Well, normally people don't have their tree inside of their car already. So they're like trying to jam the stick in the car to figure out how long our tree is. And they can only probably get it about 2/3 of the way in because, again, it's huge. And so I think they ended up charging us for like an 8-foot tree, which clearly that's not an 8-foot tree. It's a ridiculously large 12-foot tree or something. That was a great Christmas tree. And since then, we've learned our lesson that, you can slim down the tree a little bit. And that actually took up pretty much the entire living room. You can kind of see there was like a couch. I don't think we could even sit on the couch. The tree was so big. Everywhere we try to find what is closest to the perfect tree without being ridiculous. And so once you get the tree, one of the best parts of Christmas is in the music. And I have pretty strict guidelines in my own life about Christmas music is okay after Thanksgiving. None of this November, yes. November 1st, that's not Christmas time yet, people. Post-Thanksgiving, I was actually on vacation in South Carolina in September, and there was a radio station playing Christmas music, which, you don't need Christmas music in September. It's still summertime. But now I'm okay. We can listen to Christmas music, and I love Christmas songs, both the somber ones and the fun ones. I remember the first time I heard Grandma got run over by a reindeer, I thought, that's not real. Like, how is that a song? And how is it on the radio all the time? And many of the songs that we enjoy, Christmas songs, are from the 1940s. Some of the ones written during that decade were White Christmas, Have Yourself a Merry Little Christmas, Let It Snow, Here Comes Santa Claus, Blue Christmas, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, Sleigh Ride, and the creepiest Christmas song of all, Baby It's Cold Outside. Seriously, listen to the lyrics of that song. There's some bad stuff going on there. I don't know how that song ever got made. But the feelings of the 1940s were perfectly captured in a song written in 1943 called I'll Be Home for Christmas. And a lot of the songs in the 1940s were written with the backdrop of World War II. As soldiers longed for home and families without loved ones were longing for their loved ones to be back home. And as we gather for Christmas, when someone's missing, it matters. We enjoy being together. And at that time, over 9 million Americans were serving overseas in the military. And so lots of families were missing a loved one, and the vision of being home for Christmas was profound. They wanted to be home, but home was so far away. And as the song says, it says, "I'll be home for Christmas, if only in my dreams." And the reality of Christmas is that the pull of home is strong. Whether you live 2 minutes away from your family or 200 miles away from your family, Christmas is one of those times of the year that really bonds us together. We share gifts, we share memories, we share love, and it means something to us. And in the movie Christmas Vacation, if you've ever seen it, the main character, Clark Griswold, barely tolerates his family as they descend on his house for Christmas. And there's a scene in which he is trying to hide some Christmas presents in his attic, and he accidentally gets locked in his attic, and his family drives away to go shopping. And in that scene, you see even Clark Griswold, who can barely stand his family, actually gets very sentimental. Even for Clark Griswold, who can barely stand his family, the draw of the sentimental Christmas is strong. And I love that the song that it's played there, it's one of my favorite Christmas songs. It's a song by Ray Charles, and it starts out with the line that Christmas is the time of year for being with the ones you love. And forget the commercialization of Christmas. When we think about what Christmas tends to really be about, it's about home. We spend a lot of time sprucing up our homes for the holidays. We long for togetherness of family, and our homes become the center of our celebration. But what if our home for the holidays is the wrong home? What if the thing that bonds us together actually serves to distract us from our real home? It's kind of a foreign concept because Christmas tends to be all about family, all about home. But what if our true home for Christmas is a different home? You see, we spend a lot of time trying to make Christmas perfect. You got to get the perfect gift. You got to decorate the tree just right, which usually involves stepladders and enough lights to land a plane by. And a lot of times, a lot of angry words as you try to get that tree just straight in the thing, whatever the thing is, the tree holder. I've spent, I don't know, you think you have it right, and then you turn the tree and it's like, oh no, it's leaning. It goes on forever. You're just trying to get things just right, just perfect. But life isn't usually perfect, is it? So the dog chews up one of the gifts under the trees. You get so busy you overcook the ham that one strand of lights is out, and it doesn't seem, no matter what bulb you replace, it never lights up. It snows, your flight's delayed. Family members are busy with other things, they can't make it home. Perfect is such a tenuous concept, it's always waiting to be spoiled. But we're nostalgic for our ideal, perfect home for Christmas. But the reality is our perfect, ideal home for Christmas isn't here. Our Christmases tend to be incomplete. Family members are gone. Children grow up and have Christmas celebrations with their own family. And we'll sit around enjoying our time together here and whatever our Christmas looks like, but it's not our perfect, complete home. And our longing for home here is really just a reverberation of our longing for our heavenly home. And this idea of home is a thread that stretches throughout the Bible. From the beginning of time, God provides a home for Adam and Eve in the Garden of Eden. God's chosen people, the Israelites, long for the arrival in their home, the land that was promised to Abraham. In Jesus' time, people were awaiting the Messiah to establish the kingdom of God, a home of redemption here on earth. People had been waiting redemption, and the miracle of Christmas is that Jesus comes to redeem. And while we try to hold on to the perfect, ideal Christmas here, Christmas is truly about the perfect redeeming the imperfect. As we look at the beginning of the Christmas story in John 1, we see what this really means. John 1, 1 through 5 says, "In the beginning was the Word already existed. The Word was with God, and the Word was God. He existed in the beginning with God, and God created everything through him, and nothing was created except through him. The Word gave life to everything that was created, and his life brought light to everyone, the light that shines in the darkness, and the darkness can never extinguish it." This serves kind of like the prologue of a story. For superhero movies, it's always the first one, the origin story. And we look at the origin of the Christmas story. It's the beginning. It's quite literally the beginning. In the beginning of time, the Word already existed. Our first introduction to Jesus is that he was from the beginning. He was with God, but more importantly, the Word was God. So Christmas isn't the celebration of the start of Jesus. Jesus has been from the beginning. And when we think about Jesus being God, the miracle of Christmas is that God comes to an imperfect earth with imperfect people to redeem it and make it perfect. And through this Jesus, everything was created. Through Jesus flows life and flows into our lives. His light shines in the darkness. His light illuminates all. We need to think about the lights on our trees and our houses as reflections of the light of Jesus. He is God. He created everything, and nothing can diminish his light. His light will always overwhelm the darkness. In an imperfect and dark world, that's a reason to hope. As we look further into John 1, we see the beauty of Christmas in verse 14. It says, "So the Word became human and made his home among us. He was full of unfailing love and faithfulness, and we have seen his glory, the glory of the Father's one and only Son." This Word, this God, this Jesus puts on flesh and makes his home among us. Christmas isn't about homecoming as it is about a home leaving. Jesus leaving his home of heaven, experiencing humanity from birth to death. But this was not his home. Jesus' home was in heaven. And so Jesus comes to earth to trade his home for ours so that we can trade ours for his. Jesus comes to earth, and we celebrate that in Christmas. And we look at the attitude in which he comes to earth. In Philippians 2:6, it says, "Though he was God, he did not think of equality with God as something to cling to. Instead, he gave up his divine privileges. He took his humble position of a slave and was born a human being. When he appeared in human form, he humbled himself in obedience to God and died a criminal's death on a cross." Jesus gave up the perfection and the glory of heaven, gave up all of that to step foot on earth. And he came not lording his power over people, not telling people to serve him, but he came to serve. He came to redeem the imperfect. He gave up his life for ours. And when we think if we were to write the story of Jesus, we would probably write it in a very different way. And yet, our perfect generally looks a lot different than God's perfect. And so while we spend a lot of time trying to make perfect here, it's because we're longing for the wrong home. If our home for the holidays is the home of earth, then yeah, We got to make it perfect. We got to make the experience, the family, everything perfect. But Christmas is not about our earthly home. It's about our heavenly home. And there's an ache inside us all knowing that this world is not the way that it should be. It's like looking in a broken mirror, that the reflection is partially broken. And all the tinsel and all the holly and all the lights and all the family will not transform our home, our earthly home, into perfection. And the joy that we get from celebrating the holidays is just a tiny, tiny glimpse of the joy of the celebration of heaven. But taking our focus from our perfect heaven, or our perfect earthly homes, which always tend to end up imperfect, and shifting it to a perfect heavenly home is difficult. Even the people who experienced Jesus here on earth got distracted. In John 1:10 it says, "He came into the very world he created, but the world didn't recognize him. He came to his own people, and even they rejected him." The people that God created, the world that God created, not only didn't recognize him, they were indifferent, and they even crucified him. They just went about life indifferent to the miracle of Jesus. It's a miracle of God coming to earth for his people. And how many of our Christmases tend to be indifferent to Jesus? Focused not on our heavenly home, but on making our perfect earthly home. And this Jesus, this God coming to earth, putting on flesh, he offers more than family, he offers more than memories, he offers more than gifts. In verse 12 it says, to all who believed in him and accepted him, he gave the right to become children of God. That's the miracle of Christmas. That not only did God come to earth, he came with a purpose. He came for redemption. He came to redeem the imperfect. He offered healing for people broken. And without Jesus, Christmas is just a federal holiday, a good time to hang out with your family. But Jesus stepped out of his home, came to our home to provide a way back to his home. And all the perfection that we seek here on earth, whether it's within ourselves or within our homes, it's never going to be enough. That's why Jesus came. He came to point us back to our heavenly home. He came to provide a way for imperfect people to live perfectly before Christ, before God. And so, home for the holidays is keeping the conversation heavenward. It's not focusing on making life perfect here. It's focusing on what's next. And that can be difficult amongst the hustle and bustle, amongst all the plans, all the gifts, all the family members. But we've got to keep our focus on our real home. So I want to give you a second to think about what would that look like in your life, to think of a way that you're going to be able to focus heavenward this Christmas season. I'll give you a minute to think about that. If you're stuck, I'll give you 2 ideas that I came up with. And if you came up with one, yours is probably better than mine. But one way, spend 1 minute every morning when you wake up praising God for your heavenly home. Before all the demands of your earthly home get in the way, spending that first minute of the day focusing heavenward. helps keep Christmas about the hope of Jesus, about the hope of heaven. A second way is make heaven part of your Christmas tradition. So wrap an empty box that you open during presents that symbolizes the not there of Christmas. Now, don't give that gift to one of your kids and tell them it's their gift. That's probably going to not turn out well. But it's the idea of that what's here is not the complete, perfect Christmas. The complete, perfect home is to come. So as the band comes up and we get ready to close, this Christmas, don't allow your hope to be in your home, but allow it to be at home with Jesus. In 2 Corinthians chapter 5, it says, "So we are always confident, even though we know that as long as we live in these bodies, we are not at home with the Lord. For we live by believing and not seeing." As long as we're here, we're not experiencing our perfect home. Our perfect home is in heaven. And we've got to focus on that at Christmas time. And maybe for you, this idea of Jesus and him coming to earth for you is maybe a foreign one. But Jesus came to redeem you. He came to redeem me. And we get to take part in that when we follow him, when we give our lives over to him. If that's something that you haven't done, I'm going to just pray. There's nothing special about this prayer, but it's saying, Jesus, I know I can't get perfect here. I want your perfect. It can only come through following you. So let's pray. Jesus, we thank you for the miracle of Christmas, that you came, put on flesh, and died for us. And that the hope of Christmas isn't in your death, but it's in your resurrection. That we have the hope that there's life after this, that there's perfect beyond our imperfect, that there's healing to our broken. And God, if we just want to follow you, we just want to give ourselves fully to you, knowing that you are the only one that can redeem us. God, I pray that our hearts would be turned towards you this Christmas season. In Christ's name I pray, amen.